Let's get started. Welcome, everyone. This is hashtag RTBTH, real talk beyond the headlines, working with the Emory Alumni Association, Black Emory Impact Circle, the Caucus of Emory Black Alumni, and the Miller Ward Alumni House.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us here. Special thanks, of course, to Dominique, Ricardo, Seba, Emery, of course, for having us back. Um, it is a bit of a homecoming for us. Tunde and I are alums of the university. We both graduated in 2012. So super excited to be back here doing our first live and direct podcast with Emery's help. So yeah, thank you. Thank you as well to the people who have come in person. Yes. Thank you to the guests that have joined us virtually. We have some really exciting topics that we are going to dive right into today. Um, and yeah, again, the first thing that we also want to thank and acknowledge, in our return to Emory, we have our first Black interim president, Dr. Leah Ward Spears. So, thanks to her for, being such a shining example. Of course, we do have to mention, that there have been some tumultuous times. Of course, with the current administration, making some particular changes, she has had to make some tough choices. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have read the speech, and we all just kind of recognize that you got to make the dollars make sense. We are appreciative that we maybe DEI, but we have not been cut. So, we are standing up to, make sure that our voices are heard. And again, appreciate SIBA for giving us this platform to speak.
Yes, indeed. Well, maybe we should say a few quick things about our podcast.
Yes.
We have been doing our podcast for 9 years on and off. We kind of just do it as a hobby, but we love to do it and we talk about different topics. It's conversational. We started off as a sports podcast mostly, but we talk politics, we talk a little science. Herschel and I are both PhD holders, mine in counseling psychology, Herschel in epidemiology. So we try to apply our critical thinking to interesting topics, current events, sports, plenty of that. And, hot takes, unpopular opinions, social dilemmas. And we are recording our first live podcast with the Emory Alumni Association today, and that's why we're here.
Yeah. So today, I'm going to dive straight into our first really big and exciting topic. The overarching topics that we're discussing
Wait,
involve.
hold on, hold on, hold on,
Okay.
hold on, hold on.
Okay.
It is our Emory homecoming like you said,
Yes.
and so we're so grateful to be back. And you made some comments. Is that all you wanted to say about the
Well, I did
DEI
want to say
stuff?
more. There are more things, they
Herschel,
have
come on, Herschel, let's
been
hear it.
somewhat upsetting in terms of like these decisions. And I understand it's millions of dollars in federal funding that are on the line. People don't realize. I'm not going to throw too many numbers at people. I like numbers. I'm a biostatistician along with being an epidemiologist. So I am a person who really enjoys that, but I don't want to bore listeners. But like it was almost $500 million that Emory had in federal funding just last year. That's 2024 that potentially could have been in jeopardy. And they were just mentioning that $140 million were potentially up for grabs. And it's also not just Emory that has been under the gun in this situation. We all have, I'm sure, read about the other institutions that have had to make tough decisions. Emory has, and thanks to our SIBA hosts for also enlightening me on some of the positive things that Emory has done. We may have seen the news about the families who are making less than 200,000 in tuition getting, or in income getting free tuition. That is a positive thing and tries to improve opportunities for those who may not otherwise have an opportunity to come to Emory, particularly if they don't want to end up in crippling student debt. And I'm not going to say the number that I have, but thanks, Emory. But it's cool. It is cool. Um, Speaking again of DEI, this is one of those programs is how I met some of my best friends at Emory, including you, Tunde. You were actually the best man at my wedding, and you reminded me of this during your best man speech about how we were a part of the Hughes program, HUES, which stands for Hughes, the name HUGHES, undergraduates excelling in the sciences, We got to come to Emory a little bit early. It was for minority students to come, get their bearings on campus, figure things out, find out where your classes are going to be, meet new friends. And this guy Tunde was like, "Yeah, we came to this first thing on a Thursday or whatever. Man, this dude Herschel, he was mean mugging me, so I just mugged his ass back." I was like, I mean, I don't remember it going like that at all. I thought I was very cheery and friendly, but you know, thankfully he gave me the opportunity for us to become friends, and now, 15 plus years later, we are still at it. So I think that those programs are really important and exciting. I know that the alumni programs, DEI programs, have not been cut, but I do recognize that there are programs that have been removed, and that is very detrimental to the campus, particularly for those undergraduate students who may not be, super comfortable going off to college for the first time. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we kind of state those things. I know, again, there are bigger decisions that are being made, but it's really really tough to see that, especially in our new first Black woman interim president. Her first week, she got to make those tough calls. So
Well said, Herschel. Great call back to Hughes. Great times. As soon as I stepped foot on campus, I met Herschel, and man, we've been riding ever since. And it's true, that program was sort of a doorway to friendship and higher education. Um, it was wonderful. But I have 5 words to say. I stand with my president, President Sears, by the way.
okay, yeah, let's clarify. Let's clarify. Scared me for a second.
I stand with my president, President Sears, the president of Emory University. And yeah, you said it all, Herschel. She had to make some tough decisions. I know some people are disappointed. I read a Q&A in the Emory Wheel, solid student newspaper, by the way. And they published a Q&A of just a few days ago, and she said, President Sears, we have to be flexible and we have to be nimble. This administration is completely unhinged. I live in Boston, very close, well, close-ish to Harvard. I'm not sort of entangled with Harvard, but I see it. I kind of see the news, and President Trump is coming hard after Harvard. And I'm saying, I think if you can kind of play the game a little bit. You said it to me not too long ago, Herschel, that the phrase DEI has been corrupted by political forces. So I don't think that Emory is less welcoming or inclusive for people of all kinds of backgrounds. I don't think that people will intermingle less because DEI offices have been closed. Um, you already said it about Hughes and just the broader cultural milieu at Emory University. And I lived in the BSA house, the Black Student Alliance house. So, this is, I have connections to diversity and inclusion environments and practices at Emory. But I'll say it again, I stand with my president, Sears. And
Well said, Tunde.
I understand the decision making can be tough. She said it in the Emory Will. We have to be nimble and we have to be flexible. And that means playing the game sometimes so that the administration doesn't come this way.
Yes, and again, I mean the dollars have to make sense. That you can't have that research funding being cut. We, being researchers ourselves, recognize, like, the layperson may not realize that's not just money that they're handing out. You have to apply to that money through grants. There is a rigorous process that occurs, and the fact that Emory gets that much money is even a testament to the professors and researchers that are here doing this important work, pushing important health findings forward. And to just kind of laugh at that and think, oh well, we could just erase this, and these, what they are considering DEI does not matter, these people do not matter, is very troubling and problematic. I have more notes on uh reasons why people have seen DEI as a threat, but we have a whole bunch of other topics today that I would really like to get into. We're going to do another
Perhaps
podcast.
in the Q&A.
Yes, maybe we'll be able to discuss that later. But
So what's the main topic
uh,
that Dominique so graciously bestowed upon us?
yeah, so Dominique threw this out, but we had already kind of been ruminating on some of these ideas, and it just so happened to dovetail really, really well with several of the topics that we're going to discuss today. But the overarching topic is consumption, more particularly Black consumption, and I do not mean necessarily, food. Uh, we, in describing this, more so mean media, not only social media, but music, visual media, including, your streaming services, your TV shows that you're watching, the news that you're bringing in, and how these different aspects impact your mental health, particularly. The first kind of
Your
segue,
psyche.
your psyche. Thank you. Um, the first segue into that I want to discuss is how uh, the vehicles that are presented manifest and manipulate you into things that you may not want to do, things that may be detrimental to your psyche, particularly dark patterns. I don't know if anybody in the audience has heard of dark patterns, but I have a couple questions for you guys just to get a little bit of engagement. So, first of all, I know everybody, this should be a yes. Do you all shop online? Tunde, do you shop online?
I do.
Excellent. Okay. Now, when you go to a website online, everybody sees the little banner down there. It says, would you like to accept these cookies? Yeah. Uh-huh. Everybody likes cookies too, right? Uh-huh. Do you accept those cookies every time? Do you reject them every time? Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Next question. When you go to let's say it's a new site. Let's say it's not your Amazon where you've been 100 times since, yesterday, checking out. Do you save your credit card on any site? Okay. Yeah, we're getting some shaking hands, some shaky heads. Okay, that's interesting. So,
I got a few. Herschel introduced me to the topic of dark patterns, and I think it's a sort of thread throughout some of the topics that we're discussing today. Because dark patterns can certainly influence your consumption of media, social media, and how we engage with the digital world. But one that I was reading up on this a little bit, and one that I've noticed recently is if you're shopping online and it says that there's only two left, or that like 35 people have this in their cart, and it's just like this big red thing or something, and it's just like you get this urgency of like I probably need to purchase this thing right now. Also, stepping outside of the sort of like online shopping world or social media, well, social media, but do people watch YouTube channels, YouTube videos? Okay. Do your favorite YouTubers say, "I'll see you later," or "I'll talk to you tomorrow"?
I mean, I say that in real life to I see where you're going with this, but yeah, that's how I greet people. I know people that don't say goodbye instead of that they say a see you later again to.
Yeah, well, or goodbye, or I'll see you tomorrow, or whatever.
Mhm.
I mean I guess maybe not a dark pattern. We're going to talk about parasocial relationships too, but it's like, no, I'm not going to see you tomorrow. You're not going to see me, or I will see you on the YouTube channel. You're not going to see me. I don't really appreciate you saying that. So
Yes, yeah, it's almost disingenuous. I feel you, but
it
they are
feels a little
trying to,
deceptive.
yeah, they're trying to incept into your mind that you are going to come back and check tomorrow. But for our listeners, I'm going to give just a quick overview definition for dark patterns. But they're essentially something that companies use in technology. For example, your online shopping websites. It could be mobile games, it could be apps, it could be sports gambling, it could be social media advertisements, or influencers that are communicating with you, and they are designed to make you make decisions that are not in your best interest. They're not always necessarily malicious, but they aren't necessarily good. They can be nagging. They can be, if you go to a website and you're constantly being pestered with, oh hey, there's a 10% discount if you enter in your email address. They don't need your email address, and they're for sure going to sell it to whatever data collection property. The moment that you enter it in, you're going to start getting spammed with information about how you can refinance your mortgage and this and that, and you're pre-approved for all these credit cards. But I'm going to get into some of the different types that there are. And today I'd like to hear, where you may have run into some of these. So besides the nagging, where, you may have some pop-ups and things like that, we have obstruction, or lack thereof in terms of obstruction, where, oh yeah, I want to check out on this thing. Man, have you ever run into a situation where it's a little bit too easy for them to let you check out because you may or may not have saved your credit card, or now Google will automatically keep all your information. You may not even need to put your security code back in, and it will populate, and within one click you've already spent hundreds of dollars that you did not intend to spend.
Yeah, Thursday night football, which I may or may not watch tonight, but on the Prime Video app on LG. Well, I have an LG TV, but I'm sure it's on all TVs. When it goes to a commercial break, you can click a button to add the items to your cart. That absolutely blew my mind. I believe Amazon has they have done a much better job of making it easier and easier and easier and easier and easier and easier to purchase. But that to me just really takes the cake.
It's on the border of malicious. That isn't necessarily malicious yet, but it's
It's
malicious.
malicious. It's
However, we do
malicious.
have some other examples. So, I'm a father. I have a 1 year old son. He's about to be 2 coming up. So I don't have these problems yet, but he can already identify the remote, work it, and figure things out. He's not necessarily playing your Fortnites and your Roblox or anything like that yet. But any parent with some older kids can almost certainly tell you the kids love that stuff, and it is so easy for them to run that bill up if mom or dad's credit card is already in, to the point where kind of as we are getting into this, um, our previous administrations, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has actively taken action against Fortnite and required them to refund hundreds of millions of dollars in unwanted purchases because of how easy it is for a child who may not have the cognitive abilities to understand what it is that they are doing. And as we kind of go through some of these, we're going to talk more about some of these vulnerable populations, like your children, like people who may be going through other mental distressors that are the most susceptible to these types of malicious dark patterns. That's where that really starts to come in, and where we build to the larger topic of consumption, particularly amongst Black people.
Yeah. I mean, I think it kind of, this dark patterns thing kind of is a thread, as I said earlier, amongst some of the topics or most of the topics that we're talking about today. But I think thinking through the frame of dark patterns really can maybe give you a little bit of a bump or some encouragement to think about a consumption, because I'm, maybe increasingly hypervigilant and probably will be more hypervigilant about the things that I see online, like I said, with the YouTube influencers. But now, like I said, before we did the podcast, Herschel kind of introduced me to the topic and I read up on it. And now I'm just like, well, it's everywhere. And I'm sort of concerned, or at least having more concern about the digital media I'm consuming.
Yeah, once we go through some of these, you guys leave here today, you're gonna start to see it everywhere and realize, oh, they're manipulating me into clicking this. So I asked about selecting the cookies. Every website doesn't necessarily leave the reject button right there next to the accept all cookies button. Oftentimes it's a totally different color, or it's big and bright, and it's so easy. And again, it's labeled cookies. Who doesn't like cookies? So again, there are things like interface interference, sneaking design. You mentioned one where they'll essentially falsify beliefs or create a false sense of urgency where, oh, there are 14 other people that are looking at this viewing. I'm going to be honest with you. I love Polo. I love Nike. Every time they put that low stock thing up there, I'm like, man, I guess I got to check out. I guess they got me, because I love the stuff too much and I missed out before. But, that FOMO, can very much manipulate you into making decisions that are against your best interest. And if we think about instances of, so Tunde, you're a clinical psychologist. You see patients in therapy and things. We recognize that people utilize retail therapy as a way. Oh man, I'm feeling down today. I'm not feeling well. This is an easy way for me to just kind of have a salve, knowing that does not make your problems go away. But these companies are now utilizing these tactics to, score on you.
Yeah.
It is a problematic thing, and
Manipulate your emotions or capitalize on your emotions or feelings.
yeah, user manipulation.
Literally capitalize.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, and recognizing consumption. All of this obviously kind of ends up turning back to capitalism. We can talk about the issues with that system at another day. There are a million things we can get into there. But yeah, instances like forced action where, oh man, you have to watch this advertisement before you can move on to the next screen, or do things like that. You will recognize that they are everywhere. And some of the vulnerable populations include, those with anxiety, people who may have dyslexia, or, the goal may be to frustrate you from being able to exit out of a subscription. We've seen all the advertisements. I'm sure, influencers, YouTubers and stuff will offer like a discount code for Rocket Money, who, allegedly makes it super easy to do this. But many companies have worked really, really hard to engineer interfaces where, I don't even to this day right now know how to disconnect my Netflix. I have no idea. Um, and for a person who may be older or younger, who does not have the media literacy or the internet literacy to navigate these spaces, is vulnerable. And even today we're just kind of talking about it because I think it's an important thing to get out there. And hopefully we learned something today. Even going through this research, I've recognized like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't be doing this or checking out on that. But I mean, our human brains are still that. We have evolved to have the internet and things, but in so many ways we are very simplistic. So we
Yeah.
still are going to succumb to those, you know, uh,
Digital forces.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Well, I think that's a good segue into another thing, that I've been, as a result of doing this podcast, but I guess maybe just more generally is like, just I watch a lot of YouTube, by the way, if that's not been clear, and I watch a lot of YouTubers, and in this context of dark patterns, this idea of sort of an emotional manipulation or attachment, it's got me thinking a lot about YouTubers that I watch and how I feel, like I kind of got to be there and I got to watch them every day. I'm sure perhaps maybe a lot of people felt this way about someone like Oprah back in the day. For those who don't know, parasocial relationships are basically one-sided relationships when you have an attachment with someone in some form of media or maybe in some other way that cannot be reciprocated because they don't know you or they cannot actually reciprocate it. The most common example of this is in social media. So, we can see people on social media and we can start to feel very close to them, especially when influencers or celebrities are sharing behind the scenes in this era of social media. Influencers and celebrities can share things from behind the scenes. Um, the likes of Beyonce and maybe other artists, like we can see how the music video is made, how the song is made, which was not always accessible before, and we feel so close to them. We feel so close to these people. It's a parasocial relationship, but guess what? They don't know you. And that's why it could be problematic. It doesn't have to be problematic if you have a healthy relationship. But I think I've been feeling, I like to watch a lot of news. I love current events. I love politics. I gotta stay up with politics every single day. And I got some YouTubers,
You
and
stand with the president, huh? You stand with the
yes,
president.
I stand with President Sears. I stand with my
Okay.
president Sears, by the way.
Okay. So it is incredible that you have mentioned YouTube not once but twice now.
Oh yeah.
I have some very interesting things to say about that. So again, we want to consider this in the Black media consumption space. Per Nielsen, which is the organization that gives out the stats on how many millions of people watched the Super Bowl yesterday, or the Game of Thrones finale, or this or that. Per Nielsen, um, what streaming service would you guess that Black people consume the most in the United States? Now, this, streaming service, and, we'll take, if you'd like to yell something out from the audience, that's also, it is YouTube. Netflix is close second, but there are points of contention because some people do not consider YouTube as a streaming service, but there are products that are put out on YouTube. People will watch, for instance, long form media. Since now there are obviously so many short form media platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels and this and that. People, particularly Black people, are consuming YouTube and just consuming media in general at a greater clip than other races. I'm not going to throw the statistics at you, but on the Nielsen site, which they deliver a report every year. It's been cited by Forbes, NBC News, all types of things like that. But they recognize that that is where many Black people are watching YouTube. I am the same. I consume a lot of YouTube. I actually hate almost how much YouTube I watch, just in the fact that, like, There will be instances, oh man, I have this mundane task. I gotta do the dishes or something at home. I don't necessarily want to listen to some music right now because I got my son over there or whatever. Let me throw in a bud and listen to something that might be compelling or interesting about, could be current events or could be, a video game or something that I'm interested in. Um, and even there, I find myself like, oh, if I cannot find a video, I'm frustrated. I close my phone, put it down, and in 2 seconds, I'm picking it back up to look right back there where I know there's not anything new within the past 2 seconds. And that can be incredibly frustrating. But again, thinking about like these vulnerable populations where, let's say someone who does not have the ability to self-regulate in ways, that's where you could get into hot water of you know going down a YouTube rabbit hole, and all of a sudden, you're listening to, unverified conspiracy theories, because there are filters, there are things that, YouTube may put up as like, oh yeah, this is unfounded or whatever. But we have to recognize there are zillions of videos on YouTube, over the decades that it has been a platform, and there is literally no way that they can be regulated. And, again, we just need to acknowledge and be aware.
Herschel, let me ask you something, man.
Okay.
Thinking about this construct of parasocial relationships and these statistics that you just shared with us, do you think that a young black person, or maybe they don't have to be young, but maybe someone who is trying to find their way in this world, do you think that that YouTube could be a place where they can find a creator and potentially have a parasocial bond with them? They don't always have to be unhealthy, but we should be mindful of them. Do you think that they could start to find their way through the creations of a YouTube creator? And I'll just, this is kind of an aside, I my algorithm previously was not maybe, the most well tuned, but I feel like I'm starting to get a lot more black women creators in my YouTube algorithm, and they have a much different style. They talk about different things, and actually the way I sort of better formulated my topic about the music, Herschel,
Spoiler,
was
we'll get to
through a black woman creator who discussed the topic very well, so perfectly well for me to conceptualize. Like is there benefit to parasocial relationships, these YouTube algorithms, the YouTube site itself? Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, so I would say so. I think you started to touch on it as well, that there are negatives where you can be negatively influenced or discouraged, or like a lot of instances that you see on social media, they may only be showing you the positive aspects of their life, and that is misleading. That is not reality. And sadly, a lot of social media, which even now, if you scroll through Instagram, of the 100 posts you scroll through, maybe five will be from people you actually know in real life, that are that create a social connection versus a parasocial connection. And we have to be cognizant and aware of that. You have to be able to be discerning, which requires internet media literacy. But I do think that there are positives. For example, when especially honestly, over the past 10 or so years, we've seen more celebrities and influencers and people like that speaking on, their struggles or mental health woes, or, oh man, a person an influencer, a public facing person has had a death in the family, and then they are expressing on, camera how they are grieving and going through that. I think that is really helpful for listeners to then kind of, empathize with that, connect with that, and then be able to figure out how to regulate their own emotions. And that's really hard, especially if you don't have that. Let's say you're in your own environment that you don't have a lot of immediately good role models. That is a positive aspect of the internet, where you get to connect with others who are not immediately present. And we're just talking about YouTube, which is, generally speaking, a one-way transaction. Sure, you can comment, and then the person who is uploading the video can come back and respond, and you may be able to have a bit of a back and forth there. But we haven't even gotten to streamers, live streaming, Twitch streamers, YouTube streaming. I do a little bit of YouTube streaming. It's mostly video games. I'll play NCAA. I don't even talk or anything. I just I enjoy it. I like to play video games. Might as well throw it up if I think the game is good. But yeah, on Twitch, they have a chat. And speaking of parasocial relationships and consumption and capitalism, I imagine many of our listeners are aware, but for those who are not, you can obviously pay. You can donate subs, where your chat comments will be highlighted for the content creator to then read those comments, and then you get an immediate response. You get some kind of, reaction, and people are dropping dollars for real on, and again, there are many content creators. Many are, very small, but for the big ones, and let's say you're a Mr. Beast or whatever, that people are trying to get, identified and recognized, and they're just throwing everything at the wall.
A lot of dark patterns in the streaming world.
Yes, it is
That is
very
one
troubling.
place that I don't go on the internet. Is
Yeah,
streaming.
I mean, you're streaming adjacent.
Because
YouTube is right
YouTube,
there.
yeah, that's
It's
true.
right
That's true.
there.
Well, I mean, no, but the streamers are completely unhinged, man. Like the actual
Not all of them.
streamer.
Am I unhinged, Tunde? I just admitted to everybody that I'm a streamer.
Get you like 10,000 followers, you might become unhinged.
And that is the thing, that it's possible, because again, it's a different reality. To me, streaming and what we have done with the content creation and social media landscape has kind of turned into what, in the early 2000s or whatever, your reality TV shows that were, low budget, but still, giving, it was not a slice of life. But let's say, for example, since we're getting into and this is one that I think is a toxic toxic media product, and I wouldn't consider it social media, but it's produced and put out on YouTube. And the people who have created it, kind of genius, because it is toxic, and that's what gets views. I mean, people are listening here so that we can argue on the internet. That's people's favorite thing. So I'm sure people have heard of, because it's been spoofed on your, Saturday Night Live or whatever, Pop the Balloon. That is, I don't know if people can hear the groans from the audience, but it is disgusting.
Wait,
It is
why?
disgusting what
Why?
it's not
Why?
real. It is essentially essentially speed dating or whatever.
Oh, pop. Oh,
Yes,
okay. Yeah, 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 yeah,
red
yeah,
balloons. They line up a bunch of women or a bunch of men. They trot somebody on out here, and then they embarrass you basically in front of the camera.
yeah,
That is what they're
yeah,
doing over and over and over and over. You seen one, you seen them all.
yeah.
Um,
Well, is that I've seen pop the balloon a few times. Is that
yes,
like, are there white people pop the
it
balloon?
is produced by black people. It is, yeah, It is,
Okay, okay.
It's not a good look, I would say. But that's the thing. It is akin to, in the early 2000s or so, there was this show called Next. There are many iterations of this, but people will remember on it was either VH1 or MTV or something, Next, where, folks sit on the bus and then somebody trots out and they do a faux date for like 2 seconds, and then, on to the next. But now this is, that much less production. They doing it in just like a white void. Sponsored by Fashion Nova, and people just try it out here. It looks crazy. I'm sure people have seen it. It is disgusting. I said that before. I'm gonna say it again. But again, I think it was a product from around the time of the pandemic, where people were still figuring things out. We also live in a time where you kind of have to hustle and get your bag in other ways. So I do not fault the producers for figuring out a way that does go viral. Each of those things, for the amount of production that they put into it, or money or whatever, they get millions of views. So I do acknowledge and respect that. But so I don't even say that to say like it should be banned or anything like that. But I think we should recognize, particularly when we're talking about things like, and this is not necessarily a parasocial relationship, because it is not necessarily the hostess talking directly to the audience and engaging them in that way. It is more of a game show. But that's just an example. That's an instance
Yeah.
of toxicity that we need to be aware of. And there are
And
others.
you say you can't fault the people who create the content. Fair enough. They're trying to game the YouTube algorithm, which, is a whole sort of mess of a dark pattern right there, just algorithms and trying to, do well in it. But we could personally, independently be conscious about what we consume and check out of it, even though we may be compelled to sort of support, certain people or certain types of content, and this is actually sort of a broader conversation about like social media, and we have all these problems with it, and or even just tech companies and the products that they produce. We have all these problems with them, but I think we need to start moving in the direction of just simply saying no. you
Yeah.
know
Not watching. I would agree with you, but that is obviously much easier said than done. We kind of recognize, not only with that show, but there are many other shows that people will watch. Reality shows. There was a financial audit show that I used to watch. I had since stopped watching it because I realized what was happening. But Caleb Hammer is a YouTuber that has created the thing where he basically yells at people who have mental illness and have made poor financial decisions. And people watch that show to feel better about their own financial situation. Now, that does not, just like the retail therapy thing, that does not get you out of your own situation, but it might make you feel a little better for 30 minutes or an hour or however long the episode is. So
It's so interesting how much like emotion goes into like how what we consume, you know, like we have emotional attachments to YouTubers or the content of things that people are creating, like they are meant to evoke some sort of emotion. And I mean, this has always kind of been, we've kind of known this for a long time, but you know, with especially places like Twitter where it's like rage bait and you know people are so inflammatory in order to get conversation going. But you know, this the lead up to this podcast, doing the podcast, you know, it's like I don't know, hitting home a little bit more. And obviously, like my career as a psychologist in mental health, and you know, I talk about emotions, other people's emotions, and I reflect on my own emotions a lot. It's a lot more salient these days.
yeah, I feel you. I think as you even described that, I think that would be a good
Is it
transition
time?
into your.
Is it time?
So for the listeners, Tunde and I had started having this debate before we got on the mics, as we were kind of just plotting and planning on this. So I'm going to actually leave it to Tunde to lay out his point. He has accused me of creating a straw man, and I would not like to do that. So I'm going to let you kind of lay this out, and then we can kind of go back and forth a bit on each other's feelings on the thought.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Okay. Real quick, got to shout out my boy Will. And you walked in just in time for this conversation because I think you'll have some good takes. So stick around after to see what to hear what Will says. Will is
You don't have to put him on the spot.
regular on our podcast, the basketball expert. Anyway, we'll onward. Okay, so here's a hot take. Recently, in terms of black consumption, uh, I have probably been consuming less rap. And you know, this I mean, there's some like there's our the Alchemist, he's a white producer, but he has a lot of black rappers. You know, I like the Alchemist, you know, I like Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, you know, I mean, I'm not like I'm not rejecting rap completely, but I'll put it the simplest way I can put it is that for a certain subsection of rap, the emotional experience is too intense for me and has a negative tone. And I would call it YN rap. But you know, but I mean, you know, I think actually dark patterns is a sort of, you know, a nice metaphor to discuss why I've been feeling this way. And, you know, rap, I think for very understandable reasons, for self-expression and communicating the truth about where people come from and the lives that they've lived, has often, you know, utilized a lot of language and messages of violence or gun violence. A lot of languages and messages of, you know, improper treatment of women or negative attitudes or beliefs about women. And, you know, a lot of language about sort of prosperity, but you know, it could be kind of like a gold chain type prosperity. You know, maybe some are talking about more financial and wealth and ownership type, but it's like gold chains and cars and things. And I think this part of it is age. Part of it is, you know, I'm listening to a lot of Afro beats, EDM, reggae. So you know, maybe I just and you can't listen to music necessarily all day long. So you know, you got to pick and choose. But I'm confident in saying that I think there is a part of me that is just not in tune and in touch with rap music. And look, this is I lived in Atlanta. I don't live in Atlanta now, but I lived in Atlanta, especially through the days of when Future was on a run, you know? And
Still on a run. I'm just playing it. It might be the downturn, but
yeah, and you know, I grew up actually here at Emory University. I shouldn't say grew up because I was grown, but
oh, we grew up. No, I like that. Continue.
yeah. But BSA house with the other BSA house residents, we were bumping Juicy J, Gucci Mane, you know. Matter of fact, Cushion OJ 2 came out earlier this year. Wiz Khalifa, that's another artist that you know I mess with to a degree. But Cushion OJ 1 came out as when I was a sophomore here at Emory, you know. So I have a long track record, and I think there was a certain level of impulsivity with rap where it's just like, oh, new art, like artist just dropped, or you know, this artist is hot, and you just got to listen to it. Especially the Atlanta rappers, you just have to listen to it, you know. But I'll reveal my trump card after you go. But matters of violence, matters of misogyny, matters of improper messages of like what does it mean to be wealthy or to like or what does it mean to what should you do with your money? How should you flash your money or whatever? Those messages in combination with what's happening in the real world. That has been a tough emotional experience. It's been tough. It's been hard in such a way that I am compelled to consume less. And I think other people, especially the woman on YouTube, I'll post it in the show notes. She even had a great analysis of this conversation. But I think other people are probably starting to feel the same way. And one more thing. I'm not one of those type of people that can separate the artists and their acts. For example, Kanye West. I'm done. I don't do Kanye West. I'm over. You know, some people are gonna say, in our group chat, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, which was an okay album, but but that's it's a classic, and Graduation is a classic. No, sorry. And I think there's a certain level of like the stuff that's happening in the real world where people are getting shot and killed that is seeping into the experience, the actual listening of the music. And again, sorry to overtalk Herschel, but I think possibly it's about being a mental health practitioner. I started my career in Atlanta, in Decatur, Georgia, and I was going to group homes, and they were young black men, and they told me about a lot of messed up stuff. And I've had a lot of different types of clients of different backgrounds, and mental health concerns, and I mean, these are really difficult, important topics for me. So, Herschel,
So I feel you. And of course, there was a lot there, so I'm going to try to get to all of it. But first of all, those artists, and not necessarily all of them. Some of them are, putting on, from directive or industry plants or whatever. But a lot of those people, are coming from traumatic backgrounds, and they maybe speaking some of their truth. I'm sure you have an example of such truth being spoken that we're going to get to.
a little too truthful.
And I recognize also, I think that is an important point that, you not only being, the age you are in your profession, you have the ability to self-regulate and kind of understand and acknowledge like, okay, I used to like these things, but they do not speak to the person that I want to be, or how I want the world to kind of be around me. And respect, I acknowledge that. That's cool.
Yes,
However,
debate's over. Stop.
no, absolutely not. Recognizing that now, first of all, some of this newer stuff, I can't. Maybe I similarly have just kind of aged out. But the old stuff, listen, your future, you're gonna, which is not even that old. All of these, this and that, where they're talking crazy. I work an office job generally, and I do some cost benefit consulting for a big company and stuff. When I'm in the office, not necessarily talking to clients, I have to be around, many people that do not look like me, that also do not have the credentials that I have. Sometimes I need a little bit of ignorance to get me through my day. I may be at my computer, bobbing a little too hard while I'm, writing some program or doing whatever. Nobody else can hear what's going on, but it is a way, I think, which is the roots of hip hop, to connect with your community and culture. I feel you though on how, a lot of it has shifted, but this is not new. Also, I do not think that this is a problem or issue that is only tied to rap music. And I think it is disingenuous to connect this only to rap music. Black people did not create crime. We are not the only people that are out here, committing crimes, for lack of a better way to phrase this. Statistically, since I gotta, pull out my dang statistics, white people do commit the most crimes. And that is just, again, a factor of the number of people that there are. We, as black people, are only 13% of the population. But it does end up getting more news coverage and get more publicized. And when it's publicized through the music, it perpetuates stereotypes that can be very toxic. I do feel you on that. But I do not agree with erasing those aspects of the culture or ignoring them entirely, at the very least.
Well, I mean, it's not really a debate because Herschel makes great points, and I read an article or I sort of read and skimmed it about someone who analyzed like the history of attacks against rap music, and you know, I don't know the history too well, but apparently it goes far, far back. And as soon as rap even stepped on the scene, people were demonizing it and trying to get people canceled, and shows were shut
I
down.
wonder why.
It's fair. It's a fair point. It's a fair analysis. And, to me, is like I said, it's an emotional thing. I'm not of the mindset that we should stop listening to rap music. I mean, maybe YN rap, but but not the big dogs. But
Why can't the kids have fun? Why can't they enjoy their time and be able to listen to the hippity hop and then grow up and have the same takes that you're gonna have in 20 years?
yeah, well, this may be the psychology in me, but I feel like, we're talking about black consumption. I feel like there is an emotional experience. It's not just about, oh, let me listen to something ignorant. Okay, yeah, maybe once when you're working, but I mean when you start doing that every day, you start seeing these people in the news, maybe social media relationships, parasocial relationships. There is an emotional, psychological experience when you start hearing people talking about the extendo and the glicky glacky, this, that, and all these girls. And why is it always got to be my girl? Huh? Why is it always got to be my girl?
Feel you.
Over time, I believe there is an emotional experience that this maybe is a little too sort of, you know what I'm talking about, the little psychology, but it's kind of like a subconscious thing. We're not necessarily always aware of what is kind of how these things are affecting us, but if we are going to be intentional about what we consume, I think it's fair to challenge certain subsections of rap. And it doesn't have to be just the newer YN rap, but there is a lineage that has led to YN rap that also potentially needs to be challenged.
Yeah, I feel what you're saying, but again, I tried to expand this conversation beyond just rap, but people have been trying to have this argument about other things and how they perpetuate violence and things like that too. For example, every couple of years, somebody tries to write an article about how video games are destroying the youth, and not only did we grow up listening to all this music and managed again, we are very privileged in the position that we are in to have been able to get the opportunities to push through different academic endeavors and different things like that. But we also played Halo and Call of Duty and all of this and that. And I'm not shooting up anybody. That's those types of goals never seeped into my subconscious. I think that's unfair and disingenuous to the youth to just kind of put that on them to say like, oh, well, you cannot enjoy these things that may allow you to release. And again, I think that the most important thing is kind of teaching that there is a difference between the media and the reality that you live in. Even now, so like my son, we play a lot of Miss Rachel. That's what he likes to listen to. And hey, listen, her tracks, bang. That's the rap that I'm listening to. She's got quite a few bangers. I can sing all the words. My mother, my son's grandmother can sing all the words. Everybody knows all of them. And I think that just thinking of how eventually he will outgrow that and start to have his own tastes. Eventually, I'm going to try to impose what my interests are. Maybe he'll pick up on some of it. Maybe he won't. My dad, I think, did the same thing. And some of the Parliament Funkadelic stuff, I'm like, okay, yeah, I see what you're doing. Some of that, I'm like, bro, y'all were wilding. This is ridiculousness. But again, I think that freedom of expression is important, and we should not put barriers around that.
Yeah, I'm not saying put barriers up around stuff or discouraging people from, well, you know what? Yeah, I want to discourage YN rap specifically,
I
you
feel
know?
you.
But at the same time, it is what it is. It's time for me to pull out my trump card, Herschel.
Go ahead.
Tamor McIntyre, otherwise known as Tay K. And this is, I think, exemplifies what I'm trying to tell you. Tamor McIntyre has a song on YouTube called The Race with like 250 million views. Do you want to know what happened before the race dropped? He was on the run from the police. Do you want to know why he was on the run from the police? For suspected murder. Do you want to know what happened before he was arrested for suspected murder by the police? A charge for suspected murder. So this is a 16-year-old kid. He's rapping. He drops. He's kind of making his way in North Texas, and he's has a lot of the stuff that I'm critiquing here is sort of this if you go watch the race, it's a bunch of gang signs, it's a bunch of guns, it's a bunch of extendos, a Corvette or whatever. And so then he starts getting into, he's 16. Before he's even 16, he gets arrested at 16. Before he's even 16, he's, running around with some people and, they get into some stuff and someone dies, in the first encounter. They don't really know who it was, but he's still been charged with something, and I think perhaps maybe attempted murder. And I'll explain on that a little bit more later. But he's not in jail at the time, but then he gets into another encounter. And same thing, he's running around with the people. Someone gets shot and dies, and they don't know who to pin it on. So everyone's pretty much under arrest, but he gets out of jail. And then he goes on the run. He goes on the run, and he's posting about this on social media. And then he drops a song, a music video called The Race about being on the run
Yeah.
for murder.
Speaking to his trauma.
For murder.
Was he promoting and supporting murder in the song?
Yes. Yes. There were several
Maybe.
guns. There were several
Maybe.
guns.
This is America. America. He's
There-
allowed his freedom of speech. Now
God-
he may have done it, and
God bless him. God
he did
bless
get arrested. He's gotten 80 years. He's probably served, and this was like back in 2017. This is, at this point, it's not. He's
Yes.
no longer a child.
Well, just to sort of speed up through the story, he got convicted for the second murder. He got convicted 55 years, and I think he's currently 25. Then he got convicted this year for the first murder, which that one was always questionable. I guess the prosecutors found a way to pin it on him. Now he's got 80 years total. This is a young man. I understand. He committed. I mean, he's been convicted of murder. You know, I understand that he did something horrible, but he's a young black man and his life is completely ruined. Now, let's get back to the race. This song is incredibly popular, went platinum, 250 million views on YouTube. The Fader recognized it as the song of the year. It's been described as the most popular song to come, or artist, him and the song to come out of Arlington, Texas, since like the 90s or something like that. Look, by the way, the music video is pretty fire. It's pretty dope.
See, so yeah, wow, okay.
I don't really like the guns, but he does a bunch of gang signs, and he's just like,
Don't do that.
"Oh, that shit's fire." But
Well, I feel you.
the point is, I don't care how good of a song The Race is. I'm thinking about Tamor McIntyre getting involved in this and that, killing people, getting sent to prison for 80 years. And this is not just Take K, it's Pop Smoke. His rap name is Pop Smoke. How did he die? He got pop smoked. That's not cool. That we can't just like, it's not okay to just call yourself Pop Smoke and then get murdered.
Yeah, I feel you. But even then, we're starting to just cherry pick specific instances. There are many rappers.
Yeah,
there are many songs.
Ryan W. Melly he has a song called Murder on My Mind. Guess what he's on trial for now? Murder.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong in those regards.
To me,
Again, you have to have like this is where we're talking about like the how this music reaches vulnerable populations. That's where we as a community have to try to step
the
up.
elders have to step up and say, hey, you know what?
That's what you're doing. I see. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I'm gonna let you get that take off.
Look,
Okay.
The basis of what I'm saying is we have to have more intentionality. We can't just impulsively agree to like and listen to rap music just as whatever. Look, when Kendrick drops, I don't have to think about it. I'm listening to it. But there was a time when Future, no thoughts, gotta listen. Juicy J, no thoughts, gotta listen. Gucci Mane, no thoughts, gotta listen. And a slew of other rappers. I mean, there were some of the SoundCloud people, Lil Skies. I was like, look, I gotta listen to it. Now I'm like, let me check out this Afro beats. Let me check out this reggae, and maybe I'll circle back to the rap.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. And even there, your final point kind of describes that like having diverse tastes allows you the perspective to like and enjoy different things. If you are stuck in a situation where you're only, consuming a certain type of media, yeah, you're probably going to start perpetuating that, and it is not good. The challenge, of course, is always figuring out how to reach those different communities and making it, not only accessible, but entertaining. We kind of touched on this when we were talking about like how capitalism has driven a lot of these dark patterns and toxic relationships that people have with technology and with content creators and things. But, I don't just blame Take K, the rapper, for this, but we have to, at a point, start blaming the industry for promoting these things. Ain't no way, this random person. Sure, it is possible that he could have got all these views from talent alone, but like he just had one song. Like without a label promoting and pushing this and playing stuff on the radio, ain't no way all these people got access to this music for it to blow up the way that it did. So
100%. And matter of fact, thank you for saying that. There's probably a lot of dark patterns, and maybe that's kind of what I'm getting more attuned to. But the industry, for sure, is where the dark patterns are perpetrated, and we at least maybe that's a fair angle to think about this critique that I'm trying to share with you. Fun fact: no song on TK's only album called Santana's World is longer than 140 seconds. And this is kind of like it's kind of an algorithmic thing. It's like now a lot of songs are shorter, probably doesn't give enough space for having a deeper conversation, or it not doesn't have to be super deep, but to have a little bit of storytelling. Now it's just black 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 this yogo 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 yogo, or
that
extendo
might be a
extendo
hot track
extendo
right
extendo
there.
extendo extendo
Kind of
extendo
like that.
extendo.
Okay, well, might have to get some beats behind that. I was feeling a little bit. Okay, go off today.
But yeah, the industry for sure, the recording companies, the business people behind it, I think there is a lot of perpetration of dark patterns, and it's fair to take blame off of the artist and take pressure off of them. They are the ones making the music, so I'm going to be there to critique it. But
Fair.
the more important structure is definitely the corporations that are pushing these dark patterns.
Yeah, I feel you. You touched on one thing in this, we may do this kind of last discussion and then, maybe we open it up for, our in-person guests to ask questions or comment. But so you just mentioned something, and I have a question that I don't think is necessarily answerable, but you mentioned how media has become more and more truncated. These songs are getting shorter and shorter. Part of that, again, is for the commercial release so that, you get more spins, you get more dollars, those count towards your album sales, whatever. But it is not just media or music that is occurring with it's, we're looking at more and more short form media. TikTok is, blowing up in such a way. Instagram Reels is, they are trying to compete. I am very curious about what the next generation, my son's generation of media is going to be. We do recognize that, like, particularly I mentioned how Black people are consuming YouTube at an incredible clip. There is long form media that is still being generated. And I think, there are a lot of good, resources out there to listen to and learn things from. But I do not know. I'm very curious. We've gotten down to like the 30-second mark, 120-second mark of content. I don't know what that will
AI.
do. Yeah, it is my fear of, like, more and more jump cuts to different, non sequitur things that, again, hurt our brains. Again, I talked about how we are, as human beings, have evolved in such a way, but like our brains are very simple still. These simple stimuli still get it done. That's why these dark patterns get the job done.
Yeah.
And the powers that be, the capitalist structure, the corporate structures, will just continue to feed on that until, we implode. And it does scare me a bit. I don't want to be, leave us on a doom and gloom, but
Well, there's plenty to say.
okay, go
So
ahead.
we're not leaving just yet. But
Yeah.
I mean, what you said with the shorter clips and the sort of the algorithmic feed is, I think what people are going to try to do for sure is to create personalized versions based in AI technology. And that is terrifying. We're talking about dark patterns. We're talking about parasocial relationships. The AI systems that are being propagated today, they have this problem called sycophancy, which is when the AI is excessively agreeable or obsequious and sort of converses or engages with the user in a way to.
You using a lot of big words there.
This is Emory. This is Emory
You're right. You're
University.
right.
This is the Emory Alumni Association. This is the Caucus of Emory Black Alumni. This is the Black Impact Circle.
Yeah.
I mean,
Continue.
they can hang. So the AIs are are sycophantic, and they're made in such a way to compel the user to engage more and to perhaps give the user a sense of some sense of something, maybe that they're correct or that they're true or that they're right or that they're good, that may not be in conjunction with reality.
Yeah, I would say it's probably the worst type of parasocial relationship, because the person that is not the AI that is on the other side of the screen is not a real entity. It is
Yeah.
only feeding you to get you to return to it later and keep paying money and doing whatever.
Yeah.
That is, essentially the most toxic aspect. I've seen, different articles and things where it's perpetuating paranoia, and where, let's say, for example, I'm talking to an AI and I'm like, oh yeah, my family. I'm telling it, my family has said I probably spend too much time on the AI. I'm asking you too many questions. What do you think about that AI? They're like, oh, I don't. Yeah, your family is kind of acting weird. You probably should avoid them and stay away. And these are real cases. These are real instances that are occurring. And again, sure, you and I, again, in the privileged position that we are in, it may not, brainwash us into doing something that is destructive, but for those who don't have, strong support structures around them, or the critical thinking skills, or the media literacy, or the internet literacy to make the right decisions, young people and old people, and in the middle too, it is a true recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Well, quick shout out to hashtag RTBTH. You can check us out on all podcast all podcast.
Platforms, yes,
Thank you.
that's the one.
And all you have to do is search hashtag RTBTH. And I mentioned that because you can go on YouTube and search hashtag RTBTH to hear my official position on AI therapy, which I won't repeat here because I want you to go look it up. But what I will say is that I am terrified of people developing bonds and attachments and emotional relationships with AI. And I think, there's a parasocial part, there's the dark patterns part, this sycophancy stuff. But it's just a terrifying prospect to me, man. I think, I'm a therapist, I'm a psychologist. Like, the human relationship is one of the most important things to me in terms of life and career. And it's just terrifying to me that people may develop bonds with machines or devices. Now, I shouldn't judge. Same with, our previous conversation. I shouldn't judge. Some people may have challenges. Maybe they have a disability of some kind, whether it's intellectual or physical, and they just have to uh, maybe the AIs are just kind of a useful for them in their circumstance. But it is terrifying to me, and there have been a lot of reports, and I read about AI a lot. I think I have a pretty foundational knowledge of machine learning, and these are not like super extraordinarily sophisticated things to me. They're pretty good for productivity, but when they start getting into the world of like human relationships, or these more esoteric things, like we talked about in our last podcast, like people using AI to write obituaries and stuff, man. It's absolutely terrifying to me when we think about the social media world that we live in now, the issue of parasocial relationships, algorithms, dark patterns. I mean, it's just like potentially hyper maxed with AI.
Yeah, I feel you. Um, and do we want to?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. So with that, again,
No, no, no,
considering
no, no.
these. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, one last topic.
Okay. Go ahead.
We'll just talk about this quickly, but I'm interested in whether Black people are consuming psychedelics, because psychedelics are being investigated, and there's a lot of corporate investment for producing medicines for mental health that are based in psychedelics, and also people are using psychedelics naturalistically, um, for mental healing, for spiritual healing, and things like that. But I think the strongest testament that I'm aware of to the progress of psychedelics is the Emory Center for Psychedelics and Spiritual Health. And there are academic medical centers that are investigating psychedelics and corporations. But when we think about the war on drugs, when we think about racial trauma, when we think about medical trauma like the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, you wonder, will Black people use psychedelics? I've been thinking about this. Will Black people literally consume psychedelics for their mental health?
Yeah, so I worked on it's not directly related to psychedelics, but I worked on a study, particularly during COVID, about why Black people, or whether or not Black people will participate in a particular, let's say it's CDC research, formal research. This was directly related to COVID, just because that was the grant that was funding it at the time. But for examples like you've given, Henrietta Lacks, Tuskegee experiments, things like that, Black people are very, reticent to decide to participate. And it really sucks because when that research ends up becoming published, there often are not enough people that look like us
I
to
got some
represent
stats.
to represent a strong to be generalizable to Black people.
Yeah,
It's very
I have
problematic.
stats.
And well, so
In
I do want to just say, like, I and my family try to participate in different levels of research where we can. Again, being safe, using our brains to kind of identify where this is, rigorous and otherwise not, so that we can be included in that count, so that it may help other Black people that may have similar problems.
Yeah, there have been some estimates. There's been a couple of research studies um, about the participation of various ethnic minorities in psychedelic randomized clinical trials, and the basic estimate at this point is that 2% of research participants are Black, 80% are non-Hispanic white. Um, But there have also been studies that I read published by researchers from Emory that when Black people are given psychoeducation about the potential mental health benefits of psychedelics. By the way, I'm a psychedelics proponent. I've done some, well, I shouldn't say proponent, but I believe that they can be used for mental health. And I believe in naturalistic and in medical settings, we are perhaps on a new frontier for mental health care. But a few more stats. When Black people are provided psychoeducation about psychedelics and mental health, they're actually more likely than other racial groups to have a positive sort of perspective. This one is not about psychedelics, but it's a terrifying statistic. Apparently, from like 2015 to 2019, in this paper that the Emory professors wrote, 40% of the people enrolled in clinical trials for psychiatric drugs, not psychedelics, 40% are Black.
Wow.
How? I mean, so the authors, they have a note that says that Black people are more likely to be diagnosed with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or mania, and then enrolled in large clinical trials for antipsychotics, which that sounds like a scandal. I don't know. That was a crazy statistic
Yeah,
to me.
yeah. We'll have to talk to some clinicians to see, why that is. But I mean, it kind of
Well, because they're overdiagnosed. I'm a clinician. I'll tell you why.
okay. Well,
They're
there you go.
overdiagnosed.
There are similar instances like that happen across the medical sciences, and there are that is the reason why we need more Black doctors, Black clinicians, Black researchers, and scientists like you and me to get out here and advocate for our people. That probably is the biggest take home that we can have about this.
Well, I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah. So with that, we were talking
Are we
about
doing?
parasocial relationships and things. We, want to give an opportunity for these real
We
relationships
will
with
talk back
people,
to you.
that are in person. If anybody has any questions or comments or, okay.
I just wanted to say thank you guys so much again for coming before they get into Q&A really quick. Thank you for being here, even if you're on virtually. Thank you for being here as well. This program was put on by the Black Emory Impact Circles and SIBA, so we're always looking for more ideas, volunteers, or if you want to get more engaged with us as well, please feel free to reach out. So, and I'm Dominique, by the way, so thank you again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dominique. This is her mastermind. I believe she sort of brought this to life. So thank you, Dominique.
Yeah. So, any questions, any comments? Okay.